Here's what's coming up on today's show.
Don't just leave because you're a certain age, or don't just leave because you kind of hate it. Try to find something that fulfills you with your work. And when you retire, that should be a graduation.
Welcome to the How Money Works podcast with Craig and Jennifer Moser of Maestro Wealth Advisors, serving you throughout the Triad of North Carolina for more than 30 years.
We're going to talk about down the home stretch here to kick things off this week on the show. The last 10 years, we want to focus a little bit on some things to think about as we are winding down those working years, bringing in that paycheck still before we switch into retirement. But first, let's welcome the team in. Jennifer, Craig, how you guys doing? What's going on? How you feeling?
We're doing well.
Yeah. Well, apparently,
it's inside joke. So we're everything's great. We're just kind of running on all cylinders, though. It's
flat out.
Oh, I will say. Oh my gosh! All right, I will. I'm going to rat on you, Craig. So you had the opportunity to have Solomon kind of all to yourself. He's our 7-year-old grandson. And oh my gosh, if there was any spoiling going on, over the top. I mean, they went out to eat a couple of times, and Heather went with them, and then got him by himself and went out to eat again later, and bought him a coat, barbecue. And and what else did you do?
I don't know, just whatever we wanted to.
Oh my gosh!
Hey, Grandpa mode's great though, right? You could do all that, and then you give him back, right?
Oh, he had such a good time.
Only time you have to do it, so you better pack it all in there.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
So,
we went to Mass General Store and got one of those little puffy coats that keeps you warm. That was cool.
He's wearing it too today.
Nice.
I saw him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's the fun part about being a grandparent, right?
I love it, man.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. That's the good stuff.
Yeah. And that's part of retirement.
It is. It needs to be built into your spending plan.
That's right. That's
as
right.
you're planning this retirees.
That's right. Well, let's get in and talk about it a little bit. We'll start on our conversation. I want to touch on like I said, the last 10 years, decade, whatever you want to call it, somewhere in that neighborhood, as you're winding down, getting closer to retirement, and you're still working. And actually, kind of, to tie in a little bit to what you were just talking about. First piece is like get healthy and stay healthy, right? Be active. Be out there doing stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk in this thing not only just the money side of it, but also the personal side of retirement and making sure that you've gotten things taken care of. A lot of people, when they're high in their careers, they're spending a lot of time and energy in that career, and they really kind of let their personal side down. I know that it's been hard for us to keep up the healthy side and going to the gym and doing what we need to do, and it's so critical because it's sad when we see couples who come in, they're ready to retire, they've put off all this stuff that they were going to do until they retire, and then all of a sudden someone comes down with some major illness that prevents them from doing all the dreams that they had built on. So it's important to make sure that you keep physically fit, keep your mind sound, and do those things and build them into your routine, because once you do retire, you're going to even have more time on your hands to continue those activities. You need to get that taken care of at least the 10 years before, and develop that routine and that habit. And it's a great social outlet as well. So
I've started going to the gym. That's the YMCA for me. And I've looked at where in my day I can put it, and I have to get up at 5:30 to do it. So I go. Is it fun? Not the first 10 minutes of getting up. It's not. And if you forget your socks and you drive over there, it's like, well, think about it. You're over 50 usually. Maybe you're empty nested. If not, you're close. And all of a sudden you're going, what do I do with myself? You can go and hang out with the guys and drink beer, I guess. But the real thing that you should do is start looking at the you part.
Yeah.
And so keeping your body strong. For me, it's working on my abs and my back because I have a bad lower back.
Mm-hmm. Many of us do.
Making sure that I get that part every time I go. And then, just making sure that as you're looking at what goes in your body, Mark, I know you're working on that.
Yep.
What am I eating? Because, when you were young, you could put anything in the furnace and it would just burn it up. But now it's like, the doctor starts telling you that cholesterol word, you start worrying about your
A1C.
Whatever that stuff is. And you're going, now you have to start making decisions, because you don't want to be 65, 70 years old and lassoed into the house where you can't do anything and all you're doing is kind of watching TV and watching life go by. You've got to get yourself strong enough to where you can enjoy life. I mean, last year we did a bucket list thing and we did Machu Picchu. And so it was nice.
High altitude.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But climbing up the mountains, we did great. I mean, I was a little concerned about it. And, of course, the high altitude stuff you had to deal with because the oxygen's so thin up there. But otherwise, physically, we went right up the thing. We really didn't have any problem. We enjoyed ourselves and had really the views of our life.
Right. And we had, quality time. So definitely last 10 years before retirement, make sure you get healthy, stay healthy. And the other thing, kind of on a personal level, is that you want to see what you want to do with your free time.
When you get to retirement,
When you get to retirement. So you need to start developing what is it you really want to do when you retire? Because you're going to retire to something. You're retiring from something, but you should be retiring to something as well.
That's the fun,
we see
dreamy
so many
part,
come
right?
in and they hate their job and they want to quit.
Right.
That's not a good plan. Maybe find another job. I mean, if you're in that age group, you probably have some pretty good skill sets. I mean, you can probably translate it to another place that you do like. Don't just leave because you're a certain age, or don't just leave because you kind of hate it. Try to find something that fulfills you with your work. And when you retire, that should be a graduation. Okay, I've done the thing that I need to do. From our perspective, obviously, you've done the planning for your financial planning. You've looked at all of the potential things that could happen to you. And through the work that you did with a good financial planner, you feel confident that you can achieve your goals. Because remember, retirement is, even if you retire at 65, that's probably another 20 to 25 years. My father will be 96 in March, rocking and rolling. Not going to jump any rope or anything, but I mean, mentally still got all his cookies in a jar and doing pretty good. And so 96, if you retired at 65, I mean, good grief. Look how far in the future that is. Your money has to last as long as you do, and you have to have something to do. We like real estate. So when you look at things to do, that's one of the fun things for us, is that we could, if we decide to quit this job, piddle around and maybe restore something that was old and grand at one time and bring it back to life. Those are things that we like to do.
Yeah. And those are the things that you need to think about when you actually sit down with a financial advisor and get that first look is, can you afford the hobbies and activities you want to do? If you want to travel, make sure you build that in. If you want to, fish or mountain climb or learn something new and get those skills, can you afford to do that and make that a reality? All that is part of that planning aspect.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. And those are some of the fun side, right? The dreaming side, that kind of stuff. But let's talk here for the time that we're up against here. Let's talk about some of the financial side. So advantages, take advantage of opportunities. Again, thinking about the last 10 years, there's several things where we can start to maybe gain some ground if we need to.
Yeah, and that falls right into, every year there is a refresh on the maximum contribution rates that you can put into your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403Bs, that kind of thing. So let's go through some details. And we suggest, and we're doing this with all our clients at the beginning of the quarter, is looking at what their savings rates are, where are they saving, and do they need to do more? So if you're not driving, get your pencils out. So maximum contribution limits for a 401k, 403b, those retirement plans, is now $23,000 a person. If you're over 50 and over, you can do another $7,500. So technically you can do, if you're the last 10 years for retirement, you've got the ability to sock away $30,500 of your own money into your 401k. Now, of that, you can decide if all of it goes pre-tax. If you've got a Roth feature, you can decide if all of it goes Roth, or you can do a combination of the two to make sure you're saving the way you need to save. If you don't know where you need to save, that's when you need to pick up the phone and give us a call, 336-448-1086, and we can give you some direction on that.
So, when you look at what your goals are in the future and you say, all right, I know I want to make X amount of dollars in retirement. We can adjust that. We can say, okay, every year we're going to inflate that number so you keep up with inflation. We can take the taxes out of it, but you have to do the savings. So one of the things that kind of is a litmus test is if you're, say, 50 years old or 55, somewhere in that range, and you say, guess what? I need to take a good hard look at am I saving enough, and have I saved enough? That is work that we can do for you, because we can show you what that rate of savings will look like, and then furthermore, what that will pay you out in the future when you decide to call it a day and not go back to work anymore. But those planning things that you need to do, and if you're behind, well, we'll show you what your safe savings rate needs to be to get you where you need to be. Mm-hmm. You might not like, oh, wow, I've got to shove more money in the retirement account. But if you need to, that's fine. And the other side of that coin is, what if you're ahead of the curve? Mm-hmm. Then you have some choices. You have a choice to, okay, I'll just keep this going, and maybe I have a little bit more than I thought I was going to have. Or, you could decide to maybe knock a year or two off if you're where you need to be. Of course, health insurance and some other things are always a consideration. But as you're looking at this, now is the time to get everything lined up. And so you're pointed directly at your goal. Like we said, you're usually empty nest now. You probably have the most free cash flow that you've had in your life. Let's make sure we make smart decisions and not just have a lifestyle.
A couple of other maximum contributions, because not everybody is afforded a 401k or a 403b at work. If you are able to do a simple IRA, the maximum on that this year is $16,000. If you are 50 and over, you can do another $3,500. So in essence, $19,500 is your maximum contribution to that. If you save with an IRA or a Roth, $7,000 is your contribution maximum. If you're over 50 and above, it's an extra $1,000. One thing that people might not know, let's say you've got a spouse, you've got a couple, one person is working, one person is not. You can contribute to spousal IRAs and Roths typically, and we can walk you through and make sure that you do it the right way and you don't maximize or fall into any income limitations. Just give us a call on that. But you can squirrel away money and save money in all these avenues depending upon what makes sense for you. So that's one thing you can do. Definitely these, look at that every year and maximize those contributions. Because a lot of times there's some matching on those 401ks.
We had so many things we were going to cover, guys, but I want to keep going with our, kind of down the home stretch 10-year window we were talking about, because you covered a lot of good stuff there as far as like catching up and additional contributions and opportunities to save more. The conversation of, debt-free. A lot of people think, okay, these last 10 years, should I be really cutting this stuff down as well?
And the answer is maybe. That's a typical Moser answer. But when you roll into I don't have a job retirement, you need to think about debt. So, do you still have a house payment? Are you still paying on the boat, the hot tub? Are you still,
kids' college education?
Yeah. So you need to look at that and say, here's what I can live on, but I have this part that's in the way. And then do you have enough time to be able to get that off the table? Because here's what people do. They look at big piles of money and they say, I could pay off my mortgage. I could pay off my car. And usually the biggest pile you have is in your retirement account. Mm-hmm. And so you have 1 year where the market doesn't do good and your account doesn't make you 30% that year or whatever it is. And you go, hey, I could take that 401k or I could take that IRA. I can pay my mortgage off. I can be debt free. And it sounds right, but it's wrong. Now, let me give you the wrong, because when you look at taking money out of a retirement account, let's say you had $200,000 on a mortgage, just to make it simple. Mm-hmm. And you say, okay, I'm making, between my husband and my wife, we're making $150,000 a year, $75,000 a piece. And you say, I could pull $200,000 out of that 401k and just pay that bad boy off, and that payment's gone. True. But not true, because Uncle Joe will ask you for some money at the end of the year. He's got that tax on what my example was $350,000. You're going to be paying a top tax bracket of about 22, 24%. of that money going to federal tax and then about 5 on the state. So look at it and say, if I take that enough to pay that $200,000 bill off, I might have to have $300,000 to actually pay it off. Is that worth paying 20 or 30%? The answer is no. Pay extra on the payment, because the interest payment you're making on the debt, declines every year because you're paying less interest because you're paying it on a smaller declining balance. Mm-hmm. So think about what you're doing, be intentional in the way that you approach it. And if you're saying, I've got 10 years left before I'm going to quit, I have 20 years left on my mortgage, maybe we need to look at how we double up on the payments to get it done in 10. We can run those numbers for you. It's not rocket science to look at it, but if you have an approach that says, I can kill that mortgage, I can kill that car payment, or whatever it is, the college payments for the kids, I can make that go away by, and you finish the date. That's how you should do it, and continue to do the other things that you have. Again, you probably have more free cash flow in those latter years than you did when you were running kids and soccer and everything else that comes with it.
Wedding expenses and education and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And also think about, too, when you're ready to retire, if you've got that $200,000 mortgage or whatever it is, are you going to stay in that house? So if you're really not going to stay in that house,
don't pay it off.
You're going to be paying it off, and then you're going to sell it, and then that money comes back to you outside of a retirement account. So you need to think about, kind of where you plan to be living, and does it make sense to pay it off or what you need to do there.
That's interesting, yeah.
But in general, I think we're in agreement. If you're debt-free in retirement, it's a lot easier.
Makes a lot more sense.
But the question is, do you make the right decision to pay that debt off? Where does that money come from? And is it the right decision for you?
And it's not the end of the world if you're not, right? But you just got to have a plan, got to have a strategy.
Right. And maybe your retirement income will cover that debt service fine, because you've got Social Securities and pensions and whatever that will just continue making that payment until it goes to zero.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And that's part of the planning. That's why it's really not a black and white answer. It really does depend upon the individual, where's their money, how much it is, that kind of thing. And planning and the numbers will pretty much usually tell you your path.
Yeah. Well, that's why we try to do, hopefully useful nuggets of information, right? We talk about a lot of different things and different analogies and metaphors and so on and so forth. And as Kirk said, he can say it depends, but then he kind of shares some different paths that might work. And that's, again, the point of the review, is so that you can figure out the right path specifically. On the same topic, guys, they're talking about getting, ready the final 10 years. So kind of like retiring debt-free, but what about the risk management as well, right? Because as we're aging, I don't know about you, Craig, but I mean, I used to take a lot of risks personally, like with my body. I don't take nearly as much anymore now that I'm over 50. Same thing with your money, right?
Because it hurts.
Because it hurts, right? And it hurts when you lose money too. So,
yep, that's true. So think about it. When you are earning a paycheck, when you especially are in your first 15 or 20 years of accumulation, which is really what we're calling it, you're going through all these ups and downs that you most certainly can handle. And the way that you typically invest there is not in big lump sums. You're doing this systematically in retirement accounts. Maybe you're adding a little bit to your dividend reinvestment portfolio. You're chipping away and building up a cash reserve. You're not just shoveling big old piles in. You're doing a little bit at a time. And so over time, that dollar cost averaging approach will allow you to accumulate a lot of money. And when things go down, since you're putting money in and not taking money out, that allows you to be able to buy at a lower price. Well, if you are in something that has volatility, now we're talking about risk. So if you look at stock markets and go back to the S&P 500, look at a chart of the last 3 years. I mean, it went up, it went down. It went back to where it was, and now it's a little bit more than what it was at the end of December 2021 if you use the S&P 500 is what you're looking at, maybe 4 or 5% more. But the bottom line here is if you're pulling money out of something that has that much volatility to it, I mean, if you look back at that chart, it went from January to about October, it went down 27% or so. I mean, if you pull money out of something that's declining like that, that volatility cost you a lot of money because you were pulling out of a declining balance and you're not there to put it in when the thing goes back up. So you have to approach it differently. Think about it this way. If you had something that was paying inside not just one thing, but a pile of bonds and some structured income notes in there, and you're getting a cash flow that's very frequent of about 8% a year, I mean, dadgum, that builds a nice base for you. You don't have to have the home run every time if you're getting on second base to start every single time just about. It's a lot easier approach, just like people that have pensions. You turn 2 Social Security checks on, 1 or 2 pensions, and the cash flow is a beautiful thing. I look at Jennifer's brother and sister-in-law that retired from Raytheon, and they're living the dream. They've got great cash flow. They really never have to touch their money. Well, if you don't have all of those guaranteed income things, you need to make sure that you have something that's paying you interest and dividends. You have to have cash flow to pay the bills. When you get to retirement, and as you get older, you will be less concerned with capital gains and returns and hitting the home run and why wasn't I in NVIDIA this year, and more interested in, do I have substantial cash flow that can pay all of what I need to take out of a particular account to satisfy my have-to-haves, the money that's essential, your essential expenses, and is there more cash flow available for us to be able to go and have a better lifestyle?
Reducing the risk of your portfolio kind of reminds me of this story, Craig. This contractor in Seattle came across a surprise when he was renovating this bathroom, and he ripped up the bathtub, and all of a sudden he saw this grenade in the studs. And, it's kind of like, and he realized that, he got the bomb squad out, and it ended up being nothing. It was a World War II era device, but it wasn't live. Kind of like when we sit down with clients, when we dig in, we might uncover a ticking time bomb for them, right? Because they're so aggressive or whatever in their accounts, and sometimes we don't. But it's all in peeling that. I'm going to use peeling the onion to see where are they invested, how are they invested, are they taking too much risk? Is it something that could blow up on them, or is it something that is not? That's really the true value. One of the true values of working with a retirement planning specialist and a certified financial planner that we are here is that we sit down and actually look at what you have, develop a plan, and make sure you understand that plan, looking at all facets, not just your investments and the risk, but we look at your estate plan, we look at your insurance planning, we look at your tax planning, all these things that are so key and vital in creating a sound and worthy plan for you to follow. And that's what we encourage you to do, is give us a call, 336-448-1086, and let's get that plan in place for you.
Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you have any questions about what we've discussed, remember, you can get a complimentary financial review with the team at Maestro Wealth Advisors by calling 336-448-1086 or go online to howmoneyworksradio.com for other great resources and ways to reach the team. You can also check the show notes of today's episode for our contact information as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the most popular apps. For Craig and Jennifer Moser, I'm Mark Killian. We'll talk to you next time on the How Money Works podcast.
Craig Moser is a financial advisor and certified financial planner. Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through Avantax Affiliated Insurance Agency.